Chapter 5. Tales from Wednesfield. Marjorie. Marjorie loved sports when she was at school. Running, jumping were all ideally suited to a young lady with long legs. When she started work aged 14, little did she know that those long legs were going to get her into a spot of bother. Her first job was at Brockhouse Castings, in the offices. World War II was still in progress, and luxury items were scarce. So, when the cafe across the road rang the offices to say that cake was available, someone had to sneak over there to get it. And sneaking was necessary, because under strict wartime rules, no one was allowed to leave the premises without providing the sergeant at the gatehouse with a very good reason. As Marjorie's legs were the longest, she was elected to slip out of the window in order to bypass the gate. She soon returned with the precious cake, but hit a stumbling block. The distance from the ground to the window was greater on the outside of the office than on the inside, and she couldn't climb back in. Someone went to get a stool, but the sergeant on the gate had seen her by that time. She was in trouble with the manager and was threatened with the sack if she did it again. But she did do it again and lost her job. She soon found another one, though, at the food office in Willenhall. Alf. Alf's call up to military service could not have come at a worse time. His family were in the final stages of planning a move to Australia. All of the necessary medicals and passport conditions had been sorted, so Alf asked if he could possibly do his service in the Australian military. The answer was no. So, on the day that Alf headed off to his RAF base, his sister Joan shipped off to Australia, leaving Mom, Dad and Alf behind. Joan is still in Australia. Alf and his parents never made it, though, because after his military service was completed, he had to remain on the reserve list for a further 5 years. After that, the determination to go dwindled away. Ray. Ray's dad suffered one of those unfortunate incidents that you really shouldn't laugh at, but you can't help it. Dad, one of whose lower arms was false following a wartime injury, had managed to cycle all the way from Bridge North back to the family home in Wednesfield. It was getting dark when he got back home, and unfortunately he had no lights on his bike. He was all right, though. No one had spotted him. Until, that is, he rode into his own street, where a policeman, who happened to live in the same street, saw him and had him. All that way, with only one serviceable arm, only to get caught by your neighbour. Bob. Bob used to work with his dad in the wholesale potato business. He recalls collecting tons of potatoes from Fred Thornley at Ashmore Park Farm and George Lewis at Bridge Farm. There was no lifting gear in those days, and the 100-weight sacks, which is just short of 51 kilograms, were carried on your back and loaded with the strength of your own arms and shoulders. John G's missing pig. John's school life did not produce many memories, but one incident has stuck in his mind for years. One day at primary school, he was called to the front by Miss Williams. He sought around in his mind for what he may have done wrong, as being in trouble was not unusual for John. When he got to the front of the class, the teacher asked him to hold up a photograph to show the class. The photograph turned out to be of his Gran Grosvenor, standing beside what was described as the biggest pig in the Midlands. John would dearly love to find a copy of that photograph, but so far, no luck. Ken. When Ken attended Ashmore Park Youth Club, he used to take part in the 10 Tours walk over Dartmoor. It was run by the army, and the participants were drawn from youth clubs around the country. The aim was to walk 60 miles in 24 hours, taking in 10 hills, i.e. tours. Sadly, Ken never completed the course, but he enjoyed trying. John M. John enjoyed his time in Wednesfield. He even came back to the village after his family had moved a bit further away. To him, Well Lane was a community all on its own. His grandparents lived in the same street. In fact, they all lived together for a while. He was close to the cinema, the buses to get him to school, and the New Crown, where he worked when he was older, and indeed where he held his wedding reception. One of his funniest memories, though, is of his part in the coronation celebrations for the Queen. He and his group had a platform on King George V playing fields, performing Fly Bonny Boat. He was a soldier. His dad had made him a whacking big manly sword, but to complete the outfit he had to borrow a girl's tartan skirt to double up as a kilt. Oh no! Les's dad and the rabbit. Les's family kept a variety of animals in the back garden when he was a lad. The fowl were the responsibility of Les and his sister Winnie. They had to move the roost around the garden every 2 weeks to refresh the ground. But a rabbit with pink eyes produced the most enjoyment. One bright moonlit night it got out into the front garden. Dad had returned from the pub and was chasing around trying to throw his jacket over it to calm it down and catch it. The rabbit was too wily for that though, and it spent a good part of the night avoiding Dad's clutches, while the children rocked with laughter. Les and Alf's annual trek along the Great Wall of Wednesfield. Since retiring, Les and Alf have given much of their time to volunteering and community-related activities. One of these activities is the yearly Wednesfield in Bloom Challenge. This is part of the Heart of England in Bloom Challenge, which, in turn, forms one of the 17 regions within the UK that delivers the Britain in Bloom campaign on behalf of the Royal Horticultural Society. Britain in Bloom is one of the longest-running environmental campaigns in the UK. All of Wednesfield's bloomers are volunteers, and they work hard to produce pleasant surroundings for the community at large. The group achieved a silver award in 2016 and gold in both 2017 and 2018. Les has trouble bending due to a work-related injury long ago, but his role in the proceedings just fits his situation. He and his mate Alf, and Alf's wife Dorothy, prepare and plant along the 180-foot length of the wall of St Thomas's Church. The planting area is flush with the top of the wall, so Les can get at it by standing on the pavement without stooping. It's tiring work though, and you might say that Les and Alf are a worn-out pair of bloomers.